Welcome everyone, I'm Dr. Chem, and today's explainer is a journey into what is arguably the single most important, yet ironically most misunderstood variable in all of science, time. Whether we're tracking a volatile chemical reaction, monitoring a patient's long-term health, or analyzing decades of climate trends, time is our ultimate storyteller. But here's the catch, how we actually read that story depends entirely on how the data is presented to us. I want you to just let this number sink in for a second. 2.5 quintillion. That is the sheer volume of data bytes produced every single day in our modern age. With thousands of scientific papers and just countless metrics being generated daily, how on earth can we make sense of a world that literally never stops changing? Well, the answer lies in effective data visualization. We humans naturally process visual information way faster than raw numbers. But if we don't know how to speak the visual language of data, or worse, if that language is being used to manipulate us, we are completely in the dark.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll explore the micro world of kinetics. Second, we'll zoom out to the macro world of data tracking. Third, we'll build our data defense. And fourth, we'll unpack the specific danger of truncation.
Now, before we really get into the weeds of the data, let's make sure we're speaking the exact same language. When we say time series data, we're simply talking about a sequence of data points indexed or graphed in chronological order. Think of measuring daily temperatures or the closing bell of the stock market. Now, longitudinal data, which you'll see all the time in fields like cardiology or clinical psychology, is a bit more specific. It refers to repeated measurements of the exact same individuals over time. This is absolutely crucial because it lets us track how a specific individual changes over their lifespan rather than just comparing completely different groups of people.
Part 1. The micro world, kinetics and reaction rates. Let's put data under the microscope.
Let's start our journey right here in the chemistry lab. I want to show you how fast things change at the microscopic level, because in chemical kinetics, time is quite literally everything. We don't just care about what a reaction produces, we need to know exactly how fast it gets there. When we plot a chemical reaction, we're basically looking at two foundational graphs. First, the reactant over time graph. This one shows a steep downward trend, illustrating the rapid consumption of our reactants as things kick off, which then gradually levels out. On the flip side, the product over time graph shows a sharp upward curve. As those reactants are eaten up, products are rapidly formed. And by calculating the slope, the gradient, at any point on these curves, we can pinpoint the exact rate of the reaction at that specific millisecond.
But we can actually take this a step further with rate over time graphs. What's really fascinating here is that instead of just showing concentration, we are directly plotting the speed of the reaction itself. Naturally, these graphs peak right at the beginning when reactant concentrations are maxed out, causing a frenzy of molecular collisions. As those reactants deplete, the rate drops. So let me ask you this. If the line on our graph completely flattens out to zero, what's happening to our chemical reaction? Well, it means it's reached completion, or equilibrium. The speed is dropped to zero. By analyzing these graphs, chemists can unlock the mathematical rules governing a reaction. We call this the reaction order. Think of this cable as your ultimate kinetic decoder ring. If you plot concentration versus time and you get a perfectly straight line, boom, you have a zero-order reaction. If you plot the natural log of concentration versus time and find that straight line, that's a first-order reaction. And if taking the inverse of concentration versus time yields a straight line, that is second order. Finding that straight line is the whole game. It reveals the rate constant, which is basically the holy grail for predicting exactly how a chemical process will behave.
Part 2. The macro world, longitudinal and environmental data.
All right, let's zoom way out. We're leaving the petri dish and looking at the whole planet, shifting from milliseconds in the lab to years and decades in the macro world, where we track clinical health and environmental shifts. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of longitudinal tracking. Look at these two charts generated from clinical data. On one hand, we're tracking individual patient trajectories. It's a scatter of values over weeks, showing us the day-to-day journey of one person. On the other hand, we have box plots measuring inter-subject clinical variability. This visualizes not just how one person is changing, but the entire distribution of changes across different subjects over time. This interactive dual perspective is exactly what allows medical professionals to understand biomarker evolution and make life-saving intervention decisions. But out in the real world, time series data rarely looks so neat and tidy. Environmental data is notoriously messy. Sensors break, extreme heat waves distort readings, and scheduled measurements get completely missed, creating what we call unbalanced designs. To handle this chaos, scientists bring in the heavy statistical artillery. They rely on things like the seasonal Kendall test, which is this incredibly clever tool that can spot real trends even when the data is scattered or imperfect. They also use ARIMA models. These essentially learn from past errors to forecast future values. So, if data is missing, they interpolate it, maybe using a sample median for a season, just so the overarching story of our environment remains intact, honest, and analyzable.
Part 3. Data Defense. Rules of Graphical Integrity.
We've seen how powerful data is when it's used correctly. But as consumers of information in the modern world, you and I are bombarded daily with charts that look highly scientific but are actually practicing the dark arts of data visualization. We really need to talk about graphical integrity. Take a look at this first exhibit. It claims to show the decline in US dollar from 1958 to 1978. Just look closely at the line. At first glance, it tells a very clear, dramatic story of a steady, relentless decline. But I challenge you right now, spot the critical error here before I give it away. What is fundamentally, mathematically wrong with the way this line is drawn?
Okay, here is why this chart is a complete graphical disaster. It uses a continuous, solid line to connect distinct, non-sequential points in time. It's jumping 5 years at a time, from 1958 to 1963 to 1968. Connecting categorical or non-continuous data points with a solid line implies a smooth, linear change during those massive 5-year gaps. We have absolutely no idea what fluctuations happen in between. Line charts should be strictly, exclusively reserved for continuous time series data. Otherwise, the visual interpolation you're forcing on the viewer's brain is just highly misleading.
Now let's look at another one. Sales by state. Beautiful, colorful chart showing growth from 2003 to 2005. But there is a cardinal sin of data visualization being committed right in front of us. Whenever you shade the area below a line on a chart, the vertical scale absolutely must begin at a clearly marked 0. No exceptions. Without a 0 baseline, the sheer visual volume of the shaded area violently distorts the true proportion of the data. Your eyes see this massive mountain of color, but the actual numbers might only represent a tiny molehill of actual change.
Part 4. The danger of truncation. This is the big one.
Imagine taking a magnifying glass and zooming in so close on a tiny little crack in the sidewalk that it looks like the Grand Canyon. That is exactly what a truncated y-axis does to data. By starting the vertical axis above 0, a tiny, mathematically insignificant difference is visually exaggerated to look like a massive, insurmountable gap. You have to develop a reflex to defend yourself against this. Whether it's a political poll making a 4-point lead look like a total landslide, or a corporate report faking explosive sales growth, here is your step-by-step defense mechanism. 1. Always check the baseline. Does it start at 0? 2. Look closely at the axis labels. Are they actually visible? 3. Verify that the intervals are consistent and that there's no sneaky broken axis symbol hiding somewhere. And 4. Actually read the raw numbers. If the bars look wildly different in height, but the numbers themselves are just 95% versus 98%, you are being played.
So, the crucial point is this. Ethical, scientific data visualization follows strict rules. Simplicity is key. We always want to maximize the data-to-ink ratio. We must limit line charts to just 4 or 5 data series. Anything more than that just creates a tangled, unreadable mess. We absolutely must acknowledge uncertainty by actively using error bars or confidence intervals. And finally, we have to clearly differentiate raw data from inferential models, so the viewer knows exactly what is a real, hard measurement and what is just a prediction.
We've traveled all the way from the microscopic kinetics of a chemical reaction to the macroscopic tracking of our climate, and finally into the absolute necessity of defending our graphical integrity. Time series data is without a doubt the most powerful tool we have to understand our changing universe, but only if we refuse to let a manipulated visual scale change the story. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to carry with you today. Look at the apps on your phone, look at the news articles you read. How many times have you been fooled by a bad trend line today? Stay focused, stay curious, and always, always check that y-axis.